Well, good morning and welcome. I'm glad to welcome you here to this broadband webinar as we think about how we can really have an actionable plan about bringing broadband to a community. I'm Marshall Stewart. I serve as Chief Engagement Officer for the University of Missouri System and Vice Chancellor of Extension Engagement for the University of Missouri Columbia. There is no more important issue, in my opinion, facing the state of Missouri than that of broadband expansion, ensuring that our communities get well served and that our communities have access to improve their health, their economic activity, and the educational success of all of our people within the state of Missouri. Today, you're going to be working with a team of folks that are really focused on one particular community in Bollinger County, really trying to ensure that they have the access to broadband that can really enrich their lives of the citizens that live in that wonderful county. You know, as we think about broadband access in Missouri, we realize that we're 41st in the nation. That's not a number that we're proud of, but certainly a number that we think we can improve by working together with university and other partners to do better things for our communities in the state. We also know that if we do that, we will improve their lives and ensure they have access to all the knowledge and information, not only from the university, but from many other sources that can really make their lives better. So the University of Missouri System is poised and ready to support broadband expansion in our local communities with faculty and staff, research programs, partnerships, and our extension network across the state of Missouri. So again, we want to thank you for joining us today. Broadband is an access issue and an issue that's really important to our university and to the state. So on with the show, and again, thank you for all of you for joining us today.
Hi, everyone. Welcome again. I'm Alison Copeland, and I'm the System Deputy Chief Engagement Officer, and we really appreciate you tuning in today. And thanks again to Marshall Stewart, who you just heard from, and his support for the work that we're doing across the System related to broadband. We're here today to talk about bringing broadband to a Missouri community. As you know, on June 1st, our System Broadband Leadership Team, university researchers, and community stakeholders convened to create a plan for bringing broadband to a pilot community, Bollinger County, Missouri. This webinar today is a report out of some of the key highlights from that meeting, and then the report that came as a part of that. We encourage you to review this full report that includes findings and actionable plan for Bollinger County that will also serve as a model for other communities that want to move forward at looking at implementing affordable and accessible broadband. And we'll share with you later during this webinar where you can find that report. Today, we'll also demo for the first time the Missouri Broadband Resource Rail, a free web-based resource that will assist in the expansion of broadband and adoption of broadband-based applications in agriculture, business, education, government, and healthcare. At the end of our time today, we'll have a question and answer session, and we encourage you to submit questions as you go. You see that on your screen, insider@missouri.edu. That is the location where you will submit your questions, and we'll make sure that we get those answered. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenters and panelists today. You see them on the Hollywood Square screen in front of you, and I want to make sure that we introduce this dynamic team that has worked very hard with Bollinger County to bring us to where we are today. So first, I want to introduce Tony Lapino. Tony is a UMKC professor of law and University of Missouri System Broadband Leadership Team member. University of Missouri, Kansas City is UMKC, just to be clear. Sarah Dinkler is also a part of that team. She's with the University of Missouri Extension, and she is a regional director in Southeast Missouri. Next, I want to introduce Lav Gupta. Lav is with the University of Missouri St. Louis, and he's a professor of mathematics and computer science, and he's also a member of the System Broadband Leadership Team. With him as a teammate is Kent Shannon. There's Kent. Kent is with the University of Missouri Extension. He's an agriculture field specialist and a member of the System Broadband Leadership Team. Next, I'd like to introduce Mark McCarty. He is with the University of Missouri, Kansas City School of Law, professor of law, and a member of the System Broadband Leadership Team. His partner in crime is Brian Boots, and Brian is also with the University of Missouri, Kansas City, the Rainier Institute, and Director for Venture Creations. We also have Casey Canfield. Casey is with Missouri S&T, and she is a professor of engineering management and systems engineering, as well as a System broadband leadership team member. With her is Wayne Pruitt. Wayne is with the University of Missouri Extension. He's a regional director for the West Central region of Missouri. And we also have Paula Bridges. Paula is a Bollinger County representative, and we're excited that she is here with us today, the star of the show. Paula is the chair of the Bollinger County Broadband Committee. So thank you, Paula, for being here. And I want to introduce, who we'll hear from a little bit later, Rob Williams. Rob is a program director with the University of Missouri, Kansas City SourceLink, as well as Sam Tennant, who is a program coordinator with the University of Missouri Extension CARES Unit, the Center for Applied Research and Engagement Systems. He is also a System broadband leadership team member. I am really excited to have this incredible panel and presenters that are here with us today as we pursue this work. Before we dive into the findings from the workshop and the plan, what we really want to do is take a little bit of time to really acquaint ourselves with the Bollinger County community, and we'll do that next.
In southeast Missouri, just between the flatlands of the Mississippi Delta and the rolling hills of the Ozarks, sits Bollinger County, home to over 12,000 people. With 4 school districts serving some 4,500 households, Bollinger County is graced with family farms and hard-working people who fuel the local economy in nearby companies and small businesses. Bollinger County would seem an ideal place to live and work, with everything to offer. That is, just about everything.
We have affordable housing, we have affordable property, even commercial property, we have low taxes, but we don't have internet service.
And without this basic utility, Bollinger County faces enormous obstacles to grow and prosper, including its ability to attract new residents and companies looking to relocate or expand.
Nobody in their right mind is going to build a factory or office or anything where they don't have broadband. It just won't work. It makes you a backwards community if you don't have it. You're not keeping up with modern technology. And it's gotten, I mean, nobody does anything now without the internet.
Even the health of Bollinger County residents suffers because of the lack of broadband. Healthcare providers can't confer with colleagues or even reach out to their patients.
It is critical. We can't operate and provide the services that are needed in this area. The current service that we have is unreliable, and when it's down, our clinics pretty well stop.
A lot of our patient population lives in rural counties, and inherently their cell phone coverage tends to be fairly low. Not having access to high-speed internet tends to put a damper on being able to connect in, especially with video conferencing for our providers. We provide free Wi-Fi at the facility for those patients so they can come in. If they had that high-speed access at home, then there's a larger advantage to be able to do outreach with those patients.
Companies, farmers, and small businesses are unable to stay up to date with competitive practices, current technologies, and emerging markets and consumers. Many are forced to compete in today's marketplace using yesterday's technology.
Ordering merchandise or product for their business, they still have to do it over the phone or by mail or with a vendor in face-to-face contacts.
If you do your business at home, or even if you have a business in town, many times that business cannot fully utilize its talents because of the broadband coverage.
And in an age of information, students struggle to overcome the inability to connect and engage.
I don't think kids here have the same opportunities at all. They don't even have the same technology classes because the lack of internet. I've had numerous parents message me or talk to me personally to find out where their children can get internet service so they can finish their research project or put their projects together, because once school's out, they don't have internet service. They don't have any way to access, what they need for those projects.
Nearly 4 of every 5 people living in Bollinger County have no available high-speed fiber internet connection at any cost. Estimates indicate that barely 2% of computers in the area access the internet at broadband speeds, leaving most residents the only option of using one of the few open networks available at local businesses and institutions.
What our patrons rely on us the most for is coming to our building to use the higher speed. And that is one of the best benefits of being a library patron, is using the broadband that's at the library.
You will see people parked at McDonald's using the internet, trying to check into their work or trying to file their unemployment claims or whatever they need to do. They're sitting in the car using internet because that's where they can get service.
And it isn't just a Bollinger County problem. In fact, Missouri ranks 41st among the United States in broadband access, leaving too many communities stranded in a world where high-speed internet can be the difference in whether all our citizens enjoy the same opportunities and quality of life.
It would be the great equalizer. That's what I call broadband to this area. It's the great equalizer. You can do anything you could in a major metropolitan area if you had the broadband capability.
They would shop locally, which would expand our opportunities for small stores, which would expand our tax revenue, which would expand the improvement of our community all over.
To remedy this situation, the faculty and researchers from the 4 campuses of the University of Missouri System are partnering with state and local governments, businesses, nonprofit and community leaders to create the University of Missouri System Broadband Initiative, a coordinated effort to develop public-private partnerships to create testbed pilot community projects beginning in Bollinger County. The results and lessons learned from these early projects will be applied to other communities to build a digital superhighway and increase broadband access across Missouri. Almost a century ago, many Missourians lacked reliable, affordable electrical service. Then, as now, land-grant university faculty and researchers helped expand access to this key infrastructure need. Similarly, the System Broadband Initiative aligns with the system's land-grant and engagement mission and responsibilities to the citizens of Missouri. It's our responsibility and privilege to partner with people and communities across Missouri's 114 counties and the city of St. Louis to ensure access to today's essential utility, broadband.
I've seen that video several times, and each time I see it, I'm struck by a couple of things. One is I'm struck by the community's need for broadband, how it impacts the fact that they don't have broadband impacts their lives in so many ways that we in areas of the state that have broadband take for granted each day. The other thing that strikes me is that we were so fortunate to have a community like Bollinger County with so many community stakeholders that were engaged in and wanted to be part of the process of solving the problem of getting broadband into that community. On behalf of all of the facilitators, I can tell you that we owe you a great deal of thanks, and we really appreciate your efforts and helping us in putting this workshop together and putting our report together. The Bollinger County Broadband Committee didn't just suddenly appear. It actually was a product of another MU expansion effort, the Building Local Prosperity Program. And part of our report, we note how important it was that program was in place and helped us in putting in putting the community together in the first place so that we could have a successful workshop. We chose Bollinger County for a lot of different reasons, and those are all there. But one thing we want to stress is we wanted to do a workshop that dealt with a real world community. We weren't interested in dealing with hypotheticals. We wanted to work to make an impact in a real world setting. So why did we do a workshop? Well, we thought it was very important, the facilitators, as we put this together, that we did a workshop and not a webinar. Why do I say that? A webinar implies that you've got the answers, that you're going to be somehow explaining to people how to get something done. And we know, but anyone that has dealt with this problem of getting broadband into communities like Bollinger County knows that we don't have all the answers. That's why we chose to assemble 100 participants. We wanted to focus and get their ideas and their opinions because they mattered to us, because we thought that by doing so, we could engage in the collaborative problem-solving approach that's going to be necessary to solve the problem of getting broadband into communities like Bollinger County and others all across the state. We wanted to see if we could develop a plan that could be used in Bollinger County to help move the process forward, but also a plan that could be used in other Missouri communities. We also wanted to test a new tool, the Missouri Broadband Resource Rail. You're going to be hearing more about it later in our program today, but we wanted to see if it worked, and we wanted to try it in a real world community to see if that would happen. And finally, we wanted to do a workshop because we wanted to capture the knowledge and the learning that we had received from all of these participants in the workshop program on June 1 in a single report, a single written report. And I would encourage all of you, this is just kind of an overview of what we found. There's much more detail in the plan. Anyone that is interested in bringing broadband there to their community, I encourage you to go there first. Now, our workshop focused on 4 core questions. How do we engage the community in the process of getting broadband? And that was in part already underway, but we wanted to make sure that we had all of the right folks in the room together trying to figure the problem out. So that is a key aspect of solving the problem of getting broadband into any community. We also wanted to figure out what to build. That's based on what the needs of the community are, but it's also based on things like the existing infrastructure and a lot of other different factors. We wanted to figure out how to pay for it, and we wanted to figure out how to operate that system. And finally, we wanted to help the community assess the outcomes and build demand for the broadband system that was built in their community. So what did we learn? Well, take a look at a written report if you want to find out. And we're going to talk a little bit more in our Hollywood Square session about our answers to each of the 4 questions. But I want to give you kind of an overview of some things that we learned that are more general. First, we learned that the 4 questions really work. They're a pretty good way to address the problem. They're a pretty good way to assess the issues that are coming in. And they should work, we think, in just about any community. Second thing we learn is they're interrelated. Once you figure out what your needs are, that's going to dictate the type of system you can put in, and that's going to in turn dictate how you're going to pay for it and how you're going to operate it. The third thing we learned was community input is critical. Community input includes the local community and includes the key stakeholders there. We think it also includes MU Extension, but we also think it includes the funders and the operators of ISP systems their input is important as well and needs to be brought to the table. We also learned that the Missouri Broadband Resource Rail works, which we were pretty excited about because several of us spent an awful lot of time trying to put it together. We do have some recommendations how to improve it though, and those are contained in our written report. And I think the final thing that we learned is there's some pretty great opportunities ahead. there are a lot of communities in the state that want to bring broadband and the applications that use it to their communities to better the health, the economic and social welfare, and the educational opportunities for their community. So I'm going to turn it back over to Alison, and we'll get started on our deep dive into our findings.
Thank you, Mark. Good job. And indeed, we're going to take a little deeper dive into some of the major takeaways and findings that the workshop revealed. And again, as Mark said, that are contained in the actionable plan that you have access to as well. I want to remind everyone as we go through these next 4 areas of focus to submit questions to insider@missouri.edu. So please do that. So first, our first focus area, I'm going to turn to Sarah Dinkler and her teammate, Tony Lupino. I believe Sarah's going to lead. Sarah, your team really looked at the area of broadband and how it can improve the lives of Bollinger County residents. So specifically, what did you learn from the workshop participants about the keys to getting strong community engagement and bringing access to broadband across the county? What were some of the major takeaways, Sarah?
Thank you, Alison. The pre-workshop survey that we did and also the workshop itself really revealed very clearly what the needs and the potential benefits were of having broadband in Bollinger County. And so it was things like needed school access at home so students could do work at home, improvement of healthcare. Broadband could help that considerably in Bollinger County. Broadband is needed to draw new businesses, to draw new county community members to move into the county. They also need broadband for college, for work, for new career opportunities. All these things are hard to achieve right now because they have a lack of broadband. The main focus of our question session, though, so since we had that consensus, was how best to engage the community in developing and supporting the implementation of a plan going forward. So we drew these conclusions right from the workshop or surveys for the workshop. The first conclusion was that we needed better on-the-ground data. So the data that's available now that tells you whether or not a community has broadband access is not accurate. And if you look up that data, you think an area might have it, but the reality is they don't if you're on the ground. So we need better data. It's critical to invest the prioritization of broadband-related objectives in the members of the community and involve them in setting the goals. So that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. Bollinger County was a great county to work with because they were already connected. They'd already kind of worked through a process that brought the community together. And so they were already prioritizing what they needed, what the objectives were. But it is critical going forward for other entities that might be interested in broadband. You've got to have that step. It's critical to the adoption to have the participation of those with diverse expertise and resources together, local stakeholders at events, and also potential partners. Everyone has to be communicating in order to move this forward. So you have to have events in the community where you can bring the two parties, the possible partners together. We need frank discussions that match community goals with suitable and affordable high-speed internet services. So you can't offer the service if you don't know what the goals are in the community. So you've got to have those discussions. It's also necessary to have thoughtful and transparent communication. Communications to community members from external parties are important. As we said, the partners have to speak with the community to know what they need. A lot of times, it may lack specifics. A partner might come to a county and not have specifics that the county must know in order to move forward. So you've got to have that communication to get the specifics. Potential partners need to seek and obtain from the community members the information about the community and its perspectives on the needs, the priorities, the aspirations of the community in order to explore the options that might be used in that community to go forward. And so because of that, we recommended an emphasis on developing communication strategies in both directions, both from the potential partners to the community and also if there are no potential partners kind of making themselves known, the community needs to know how to go find those partners and how to communicate with those partners. So we need that communication going in both directions. So that was kind of our results, but we do want to ask Paula Bridges, because this county did such a great job ahead of time, sort of starting this partnership with everyone in the community. It was a very diverse group that came together. We want to know, what is it that worked to bring the various backgrounds in the county together so that they could discuss these priorities? Paula, can you answer that for us?
Well, the Bollinger County decided to explore the Building Local Prosperity program offered through Extension, and that was the beginning of it all. We decided that our county was stuck. It wasn't going forward. It wasn't prospering, and we needed to find a way to help our county. And this seemed like the perfect thing, because through the Building Local Prosperity, we were able to use Extension people, Mr. Richard Proffer in particular, to help us to focus on what our problems were and what our needs were, what our strengths are. And I mean, we spent, 6 to 9 months doing that, and lots of meetings. And then we broke up then we determined what our primary needs were, our areas of focus. And one of them was broadband, because we recognized that our county is really not connected in any way. And it's affecting us in all ways, educationally, business-wise, health-wise. So that's what we did. And I'm on the broadband committee. So that's pretty much how it all happened. And we started out with like 22 people in the Building Local Prosperities group. And then we separated into our interest areas. And I chose this one. And we've been going at it ever since.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you very much.
Paula, I want to echo Sarah. Thank you so much. And thank you for serving on this panel today too. And Paula, I think you might agree that when we talk about broadband and broadband expansion, yes, that's very important. It realizes many, many gains for communities. At its core, it's a community development initiative as well. And I think you spoke to that. You identified Building Local Prosperity as a model to help facilitate that. There are other models that can bring folks together, but that Building Local Prosperity initiative through Extension is one way. And we can provide information about that for those of you that are listening if you're interested in that model. So again, thank you, Paula. I want to move now. We're going to introduce Lav Gupta and Kent Shannon. They are the next team that really helped this work focus on broadband systems. And we're going to learn from them the infrastructure that best meets the needs in Bollinger County moving forward in this particular initiative. So Lav, I'll go to you first. What did you learn from the workshop participants about this important decision?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Copeland, Bollinger Broadband Chief Paula Bridges, and fellow panelists, stakeholders, and well-wishers. This question about the nature of the broadband infrastructure was actually discussed in 2 sessions of the workshop on 1st June. And it was a delight to see participants so varied in their vocation and experience, and yet very well informed and knowledgeable about this subject. There was a cautious confidence as they spoke about the necessity of the gigabit broadband and the associated fiber infrastructure, which will enable rich multimedia interactive applications of the future. In fact, it was also mentioned that this would enable data centers to be brought into Bollinger, which will create more jobs and increase the rent of the property. these things are of prime importance for Bollinger and similar counties. However, pragmatism, that affordability factor should not be lost sight of. In the medium haul, therefore, depending on the terrain, topography, distribution of households and businesses, the availability of funding, fiber may be married with other technical options like hybrid fiber coax, which is cable broadband on the cable TV network, DSL or digital subscriber line broadband on the fiber, the copper pair network, which is for the telephone services, or various wireless technologies to achieve the broadband rates at reasonable cost. So as the deployment gets planned, they want the planners to assess the requirement and availability gap using reports from various agencies like Federal Communication Corporation, Department of Economic Development, and Chamber of Commerce and other regional bodies, supplemented with actual surveys of the places where broadband is to be given. So these were what was voiced by the participants, and these are exactly our recommendations. So we feel that Bollinger County is ready to move forward, and so would probably be other counties similar to Bollinger. Thank you. And Kent, would you like to add something to this?
I just reiterate with the size of the county that Bollinger is, population density, geography, terrain, and keeping affordability as a key, that multiple technologies will probably need to be implemented to make broadband work for a county such as Bollinger.
Thank you, Kent. Thank you, Lav. I want to make sure that Paula weighs in. Paula, is there anything that you'd like to add on behalf of Bollinger County about the technology piece related to broadband expansion? Paula, I think you're on mute.
Okay.
Still on mute.
Still on mute.
Hello? Oh, good. Okay, so we're aware of the fact that we're going to need a lot of different tools or ways of making broadband work. As a matter of fact, we've actually talked to 2 different companies. One of them who has already, through the CAF2 grant, has a portion of Bollinger County already approved to work in. We've already had meetings with them, and they've actually come out and seen what we're talking about when we talk about hills, valleys, lots of rocks, and lots of forest. So, and we invited a second company out because we know that they have applied to assist Bollinger County with its broadband through the Reconnect 2 grant, I think through the USDA, I'm not sure. Anyway, so yeah, we've got 2 companies who have both come out with representatives to look over our situation. And I think it's going to be wonderful to work with them. And we have stressed to both of them that we are a poor county. I mean, let's just put it factual. And money is a big concern. We've had a couple of people, we've done outreach through like chamber websites, stuff like that. And there's 3 questions that have come up multiple times. Is getting broadband going to raise my taxes? Is Black River Electric, which is our cooperative, going to raise their rates or my rates? And am I going to have to pay for my neighbor to get it? So money is right there. We don't doubt that we need it, but everybody is concerned about how they're going to pay for it. So that's pretty much it.
Well, Paula, thank you for that. I think, Paula, you definitely are an expert on broadband. We need to put you on the road and help educate a lot of folks about the many complexities related to broadband. So thank you for that. And you've teed us up well to talk about the next segment. And I'm going to introduce Mark McCarty and Brian Boots to really talk about those pieces. So we've talked about the need for broadband. We've talked about different technologies based on terrain, topography, those sorts of things. And now how do we pay for it, which you so rightly directed us, Paula. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian and Mark, and they can share findings from the broadband workshop and what's also in the actionable report. So take it away.
Yeah, that's always the hard part. How are you going to pay for it? Installation costs, we went through the panels that Lav and Kent hosted. It looks like the cost of installing the equipment is as a bogey. That difference, and you're not really going to know until you finish all the engineering, but they're throwing out numbers like $5,000 to $20,000 a customer. And that's many, many times the cost of what it costs to install in an urban area. So really, and I think Paula points out that, folks can't afford to pay multiples of what your cable bill or what your internet bill is that we're paying in the city in order to get the same level of broadband service. So it's going to take government grants, support, low interest loans, maybe help from philanthropics. It's going to need help from MU. The question is, how can we help tee that process up? How can we make it go smoother? And that's really what we were focusing on quite a bit in our panels, both from an economic standpoint and from a legal. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian, let him cover the economic, and I'll come back with a couple of legal issues that we have in making broadband happen.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. So one thing is there's a number of studies out there, one of which comes from Purdue University, that estimate a 4-to-1 payback in terms of benefit versus cost for installing broadband systems. One of the problems is, however, that at best, about 50% of cost is going to be recouped through subscriber revenues. So how do we help figure out how to bridge that gap? One thing that we discovered in our pre-survey workshops, during the workshops, and then also in the post-workshop surveys is that there are co-ops out there that have already solved this problem, and some of which were represented at the workshop. And they do seem open to considering partnerships with others that they think may lack expertise to finance, build, or operate a broadband system. And so one of our recommendations here related to this is that University of Missouri System engage with different trade groups around the state to encourage cooperation, partnerships, and information sharing. Another related insight that we discovered through this process was that, and this was clear across all of the different formats of feedback, that there needs to be some clear and simple way to quantify costs and assess the relative merits of our different broadband delivery options. So there are tools that exist like this for doing similar things for solar energy cost estimation, for example. We think something like this would be important to build for broadband system cost estimation. And this is necessary so that we can gain public commitment to use and help fund portions of the system that are going to deliver government services. So those might be emergency telecommunications, for example, the 911 first responder system. Effectively soliciting grants and other government funding from federal and state government sources. It's hard to request funding if you don't know exactly how much you need, kind of to some of Paula's previous points. And then also, related to some of Paula's points, to interest private businesses and ISPs in coming on board to help on such a project. So assuming funding availability within the UM system, we think that engineering, business, and law schools across the state working with CARES would do a service to the state to create a publicly available broadband infrastructure project modeling resource that could be used through Mizzou Extension and others that are interested across the state, not beyond Bollinger County.
And on the legal side, we've really identified a couple of things there as well. We've already alluded a couple of times to rural electric co-ops. One of the reasons why they are such great partners or potential partners in broadband is because they have quite a bit of easements to run their electrical lines as well, and those you would hope could be adapted to run broadband, fiber optic cable, or other systems to deliver broadband to the homes. What you find out, though, is that for many of these folks, it's a pretty Herculean task to go back and look at all of their easements, figure out who actually owns the property, and to go through a process of trying to amend those easements to permit them to use broadband. It may surprise you to know that most easements are drafted pretty narrowly, and although they give you permission to run electrical service, they may well not give you permission to run broadband service as well. Another legal issue that comes up is kind of somewhat unique to our state. Our state has a fairly limited and generally restrictive statute that basically is designed to stop municipalities from engaging in telephone service. It's a product of the 1990s, and it really hasn't been updated since that date. And so what we hope that can be done is a couple of things on that. On the first problem, we're hoping that we know that a lot of MU law schools have project-based efforts underway. We think that those folks, we could use law students teaming up with faculty to help in specific areas and appropriate areas, help them identify their easement problems and identify that and just do some of the preliminary legwork on that. And second, on the statute itself, we think there's a need for some clarification of that statute by regulation to let folks know what types of public-private partnerships, initiatives are permitted and what kinds aren't.
Thank you, Mark. I think what we find with initiatives like these where we bring people together to solve problems is sometimes we need to do even further work as it relates to identifying public-private partnerships, tools to help us move forward. So thank you, Brian, as well. I'd like to see, Paula, if you have anything that you'd like to add as it relates to Bollinger County and cost and legal concerns related to broadband expansion.
Yeah. There is no, on our committee, we don't have an attorney or anything like that. So it really helps that Missouri's extension has that legal part that we can, get information from and guidance from. The easement law is something that we've butted up against a lot. And I know in speaking with one of the ISPs that are interested in working with us, they told us about an easement law that had been updated in the state of Indiana, where they have done a lot of work to allow for more connectivity on the utility poles. And it might be that we've got to get the legislature more involved to actually look at the language of that 1990 law and bring us up to date. I mean, the truth of the matter is the co-ops understand electricity, okay? But they have the connectivity to the individual homes. But there's a disconnect between, like, let's say our broadband committee and co-ops, and it's not just in Bollinger County, it's in other counties. And it's just lack of understanding and knowledge, and them not wanting to, some of it I think is definitely financial, what's in it for me kind of thing. And the other part is, total lack of knowledge. But we've got to I think, get our legislature involved and look at the things that are holding the rural communities back from being able to go forward and develop working relationships with co-ops. Like, I don't know, mandate, work with local communities, you know? I mean, is that a too strong a word? Or look to work, be in the best interest of your citizens. I don't care how you word it. Bottom line is, it's not happening in a lot of rural communities, and Bollinger County is one of them. And okay, that's pretty much what I want to say.
Thank you. Well said, Paula. Definitely policy concerns are real, very real. I want to go to our last group, and we're gonna lead with Casey Canfield, and Casey will discuss recommendations about how to inform and promote the use of broadband applications. Specifically, what are the challenges and potential solutions for addressing broadband application and adoption after infrastructure is in place? Take it away, Casey.
Yeah, thanks, Allison. So access alone is not going to realize the economic development, education, and health outcomes that we're looking for. We also need people to actually adopt the broadband services. And so, as we've been talking about already, one of the big things that came up during the workshop during a root cause analysis activity that we did was that there's this core challenge of affordability. And this is driven by a lack of market competition, the high cost of infrastructure installation, and inaccessible pricing for low-income residents. And so some of the potential solutions that we discussed include the potential for subsidies and the need for consumer choice to find a service package that fits a particular consumer's needs. So one of the challenges with subsidies is determining who should administer it. Providers already receive a lot of subsidies, so there was not much interest in increasing that. There was interest in determining whether a nonprofit community organization or a jurisdiction could administer an adoption subsidy to reduce the cost of subscription. In terms of consumer choice, this can be achieved by market competition between multiple providers or being able to choose between relevant bundles within a single provider. The effectiveness of these strategies and the broadband effort in general needs a multi-pronged evaluation approach. So we need to think about it from both a quantitative perspective and a qualitative perspective so that we can think about short and long-term impacts. Some potential metrics that might be useful include the percentage of the population with access who have actually adopted services and satisfaction with internet service. So it might be useful to start conducting annual surveys to establish a baseline so we can measure improvement over time. During the workshop, we identified lots of opportunities to potentially collaborate with system faculty for community-inspired research. That's something I'm personally very excited about. As has been mentioned before, definitely recommend checking out the report for more details.
Great, thank you, Casey, and thank you, Wayne, too, for being a part of this really important component of broadband expansion. So I want to go to Paula and see if there's anything that you'd like to add to Casey's point related to the community perspective.
Well, our committee has talked a lot about need for outreach and education, marketing. The COVID virus has opened our eyes. We knew we were in trouble before and not connected, but all of a sudden, with the health concerns and the schools closing, and I realized that, we're really in more trouble than we thought. 4 out of 5 homes in Bollinger County don't have internet access. So the kids that were sent home to do their schoolwork, couldn't do their schoolwork. The teachers that went home and needed to communicate with their students could not if they lived in Bollinger County. If you lived in one of the other counties and just worked in the Bollinger County school system, you could communicate with your students, the ones that had internet, which, like I said, 4 out of 5 households does not. So we're looking at starting a school year again, and nothing has changed. And we are going to go into the same situation that we did before. How do we educate students when the educational system is working toward computers? If you don't have an internet system in your community, and we're going to deal with the same thing with healthcare and the same thing with businesses. You can't grow as a community economically without being able to encourage business, and we can't, because that's not something we can offer them. And I'm not sure if I've gotten off topic or not, because, well, I just kind of started talking. But I think that's all I needed to say.
Well, again, well said, Paula. Thank you so much. Those are realities that many other communities experience as well. So thank you. And thank all of you. I thank all of you for your contributions in this way. Just to summarize quickly, what we really just looked at is the need for broadband, particularly in Bollinger County, infrastructure and technology needed to bring broadband to Bollinger County or any other community, cost and legal concerns related to broadband, and then finally utilization of broadband. Those are the four areas that we've just looked at. So while our focus has been on Bollinger County, this actionable plan that we continue to reference and encourage you to go to really can be a template and replicable for all communities as well. So we really encourage you to move in that direction, to look at that. I'm going to call next on Mark McCarty. We're going to pivot, and Mark is going to set up our discussion about really looking at the demo of the Missouri Broadband Resource Rail. This is the first time we've demoed this really important tool, and I'm excited for you to see it. And so Mark is going to help us move in that direction. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that one of the things you learn over the years is in order to solve any problem, and this is obviously a big problem, you need to have the right data and you need to have the right people. And the Missouri Broadband Resource Rail is designed to do that. It's designed to bring the right data together for people that are interested, and it's designed to connect people. And one of the great things about the process that we went through is we discovered that we had that tool right in the University of Missouri system. Rob Williams is the program director of SourceLink. SourceLink is a resource connector, and it's a very good one. It's been used in many places. SourceLink is one of the websites that used, and I encourage people to look at it if you haven't had a chance to connect entrepreneurs generally. Sam Tennant is a program director at CARES. CARES is the sponsor of All Things Missouri, which is a tremendous tool in terms of assembling data that's relevant to problems and solving them. So I'm going to turn the rest of this over to them and let them debut our Missouri Broadband Resource Rail.
Thanks, Mark. So I'm going to go ahead and segue over to the website, get my screen shared really quick, give you guys a break from seeing our faces. Can everyone see the screen, see the website?
Yes.
Okay, I see some nods. All right, so as you can see, this is the Missouri Broadband Resource Rail. The URL for this site is mobroadband.org, and we're hoping that this can serve as a space to hold central information. So this is an emerging topic, and this provides a space to get caught up to speed and get moving. Especially with COVID-19, things are moving in real time, and this can be used as a space to view everything and continue moving forward. It's a space for shared learnings and best practices, as well as a space for collaboration and moving parts. So over here on the homepage, you can see we have a number of functions that you can interact with, either using the slider here in the middle and clicking Explore, or these sections directly below, which has the resource navigator that SourceLink has built, as well as the library and the broadband planning guide. And as you can see, this pop-up in the right corner here is the workshop report that we've been talking about this whole time. So once you come to mobroadband.org, go ahead, open, view this plan. But I'm going to go ahead and get started with the broadband planning guide. So I'm going to close this, and you can hit Explore there, but I've already got it open. So as you've heard so far, bringing the benefits of broadband to your community requires planning, perseverance, and partnerships. So this planning guide is used to help you navigate the journey of bringing broadband to your area. This works like a story that guides you through each of the workshop questions mentioned earlier. All of the underlined bolded text are links to documents to get more information, and the blue text, when clicked, will actually add data layers to maps as you go through each of these tabs. But these tabs are structured the same way with those workshop questions with Bollinger County that were previously mentioned. So how do we engage community stakeholders? What is the optimal broadband infrastructure? Each of these tabs you can go through and sort of start to discover on the state itself, engaging some of those potential stakeholders. So as I click on identifying the rural electric cooperative service areas that you would connect with when you want to bring this to your area, or engaging places like libraries, which also may be important to the developing infrastructure options, because these locations typically already have some type of internet access. So libraries can also be an important resource offering digital literacy programs as well. Same with schools, local MU extension offices, hospitals, clinics, and nonprofits. We've also talked a lot about infrastructure, actual terrain, and electric co-ops. What's it going to take to actually build in that? Is it feasible to put lines under huge hills in certain areas around the state? Or going through financing and legal, what grants and loans are you eligible for? Come over to the financing and legal tab and see which spaces here in orange are eligible for rural digital opportunity funds. We also have a search bar that you can go directly into whatever county you'd like to see. And as you can see, everything highlighted in orange is eligible for this fund through the FCC, or we have the USDA funds. I just encourage you to come in and play within your specific area. And then with community adoption, there were things mentioned about, what is the actual access rate in your town? So using the data to see what's the FCC reporting access across the state. We have in this dark purple area 100% access, but as we look at the other data points, just to start conversations, is Microsoft saying the same thing with actual usage? And in this dark purple area where there was 100%, we can see, I can click on a county to get the information, and it'll take a second to load, and see the actual percentage of internet usage. And this is only 9.8% internet usage at speeds greater than the broadband speed, when before it stated that there's 100% connectivity. We've also developed something called the Internet Service Provider Finder. So as this loads, our legend on the right will be a list of all the consumer internet service providers, as well as their advertised download speeds. And underneath that will be the business internet service providers. So I can, I'm gonna preload an address really quick into my search bar. It'll take me straight there. And then I come over here to the left to my selector tool, and I'm gonna click on this census block. Clicked on a couple, but as you can see, here are all the internet options in these service blocks, as well as the speeds they provide. So we have Mediacom, CenturyLink, and they're listed twice because I selected 2 census blocks. But it will also have the type they have. So fiber, cable modem, DSL, terrestrial, fixed wireless. So within your community, what's already set up there to potentially expand on. And then we've also implemented within All Things Missouri, the Missouri Map Room. So if you want to see all of those different data layers put in one space, because in those tabs, you can only click one at a time, you can come in here and search something like broadband to see all the data layers we have on broadband itself. And I can look at something different from the American Community Survey, which is households with any broadband by county. And then I can start to compare those different data layers like median income or some of those stakeholders. I can even drill down into different census tracts just to get a closer area of what's involved. If you need help guiding through this, I know there's blue and black and different functions with this. So I highly suggest coming in here and playing around. And that was the broadband planning guide. We also have a library. We wanted to conduct these resources to help communities assess appropriate technologies to meet their broadband infrastructure needs. available financing and funding resources for projects, and strategies to educate the public on how to use broad-based applications. So what I can do is just select my topic. I have applications and adoption. If I want to know things on funding, the legal and regulatory documents to go through, different broadband technologies, and community broadband planning. So once I click on that topic, I can click on the link to open the PDF. And this, again, the Bringing Broadband to a Missouri Community, is the full workshop report. So once you come to the site, check out the library to see what all is there. If you want to know more about the Broadband Initiative, we have our About page that will explain everything that's going on there. But I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Rob Williams so he can demonstrate the Resource Navigator.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. You know, I just wanted to highlight a couple other parts of the platform, notably and just really quickly. For the first time, we've really made a concerted effort to try to catalog and make available all of the broadband-related programming and events. Similar to the catalog in the library and the topics and the areas. For now, Missourians can come here, they can type in that they're looking for like funding information related to a potential broadband application. They might find an SBIR STTR workshop from the SBDC. They may find a conference or a networking event from any one of the Missouri Broadband Resource Rail partners. There are even conferences and other opportunities that are happening on a day-by-day basis that are pertaining to broadband that we're going to try to surface and make more accessible through a central calendaring system. And one notable thing about the Broadband Resource Rail that I think is worth noting is that this is a living, breathing website, and it's going to be a really powerful tool because of that ability for everyone to contribute to it. It was mentioned earlier, the importance of having all stakeholders engaged and on board. And so we've made a concerted effort to make sure that the Resource Rail is able to take in contributions from everyone here. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we'd love for you to get involved, but just note, you can even come here and submit your own broadband related type of an event so that everyone can find it and visibility can be raised. The other critical piece I just want to cover really quickly is something called the Missouri Broadband Resource Navigator. The last several months, we have been looking at all of the broadband assets across the state, seeking to really understand what's in place, understand what we have here in Missouri, and how we can better link all of these people, programs, best practices together. And so the Resource Navigator is really the visualization of all of this data. And the way that we hope all of the users are going to start to unlock this data is by using it to get connected to opportunities and to start connecting some of these previously not surfaced types of opportunities. So the Navigator itself, you can kind of think of as a directory where users can come here and they can start specifying different areas of assistance. And so you might, for instance, go to broadband providers and you might look at, let's see here, I want to pick, actually, I picked the wrong one. That's why. Broadband providers, wireless providers. We talk about the importance of ISPs and making sure that we can connect to those. These are organizations and people that have stood up that said, we are committed to expanding broadband. And so you can learn a little bit about these, in this case, an ISP. And we know that this work is person to person. And so we've taken a lot of time to figure out who you need to connect with specifically if you have a potential opportunity that you'd like to explore. So that's one use case. There are many other use cases. One could be coming in and looking at broadband applications, which we've talked a lot about. And maybe you're looking at government solutions or best practice examples. And so you might run a search and you might find that Kansas City has this digital equity strategic plan. And boy, that would be nice. My city could use a strategic plan. Well, here's an opportunity to learn more about the strategic plan and get connected to my friend Rick Usher to learn more about what they did and how that might apply for our community, how we might be able to use that. Another example might be, obviously we've talked about broadband delivery, and you might come here and do delivery technologies. And you might pick, for instance, different ways of deploying broadband and or research. And you'll notice that the Building Local Prosperity initiative comes up. And we've already talked about how influential and important this was for Bollinger County. Other counties, other stakeholders will be able to do these types of searches and find information and get connected to Richard to learn more about how they were able to pull that together and maybe do something similar in their own community. The only other thing that I would add is that we've also taken a lot of time to look at the university resources system-wide, and have actually created even a custom view of looking at those assets that maybe just pertain to the university or have a university connection, in an effort to better surface and connect those resources as well. We mentioned earlier the importance of legal support and being able to connect that dot. I think what's kind of interesting is on the broadband resource rail, coming here, maybe picking an area of assistance and maybe going to delivery, doing legal or regulatory matters, and coming here and discovering this Projects in Law, Technology, and Public Policy course, which is an opportunity for students to get connected to community projects through our own Tony here that's on the call. And, you know, better linking these pieces and parts is what this technology can do, and we hope it will do. The only other thing I will add is that we're also going to be capturing a lot of data because we've already mapped some of these resources. We can see what's available. We can also see the way that the public will be searching this system. That'll allow us to find opportunities for gaps and improvement, and better facilitating more broadband activity to happen. And this is, again, a collaborative effort. And one of the key things, we know that this is just a start. There's probably another 50 assets that we need to load into this system. And we're looking to all of you to participate and to share your own broadband asset. The easiest way to do that is right here on the website. You can come to an online form, share with us your information and a little bit about what asset you may have that could help solve this broadband challenge. Submit that to our team. We'll make sure that it fits, and we'll make sure that to load it on the rail. And all of that will be used to inform opportunities going forward. So that's just a quick overview of just a couple other pieces of the site. At this point, I think I'll turn it back to the team.
Rob and Sam, thank you so much. The demo of this really important and critical tool is exciting to see. And I know our audience is very interested in learning more and doing a deeper dive as well. So thank you so much for that. Many people contributed to the development of the Missouri Broadband Resource Rail. Thank you, Rob and Sam, again. I want to pivot. We have time for a few questions, and I'm going to look to Megan Sylvie, who is on our screen. Megan is with University of Missouri Extension, Communications Director. Megan has been watching the question line, and go ahead, Megan, and identify any questions, and we'll make sure we route it to the right speaker.
Thanks, Allison. The first question is for Sam about the data on the broadband planning guide, and if that data is available for download and for use in other applications.
Yeah, so all of the data that's on the broadband planning guide are going to be on within the CARES data engines we have on a lot of other sites, one being All Things Missouri. So within there, you can download the layers, but from the broadband planning guide themselves, I'm not sure, I don't think there's a way to immediately download just because it just loads straight to the map. But if you go to the broadband planning guide and click on the All Things Missouri map room, there's an immediate link to go to All Things Missouri and just make a note from the legend from the broadband planning guide, which data layer you want to download. And then from there, you should be able to export that data layer and get some more methodology and information that can then be plugged into other tools.
Thanks, Sam. We also got a question from a graduate student at Missouri S&T for Brian about what are the metrics we can use to calculate payback for our investment in broadband.
Yeah, it's going to depend on the specific system and the specific type of system and its intended end application. But there's a few different areas of on the benefit side that can range from increasing revenues for hospital systems or medical service systems generally, to a lot of the benefit side is cost savings, and those can be cost savings for healthcare institutions, they can be for educational institutions, they may be for municipal governments, and this is before even talking about any of the benefit side for businesses, precision agriculture, things like that. You can become a more efficient operation and/or increase revenues for your organization.
Thanks so much.
And Alison, I could add that the service providers themselves use something called ARPU, ARPU, average revenue per user. And this is a very important metric for them.
Thanks for that. The last question is from someone who their community is interested in beginning to pursue something like what was done in Bollinger County. What are the best ways to get started? And also specifically, how could we use the Missouri Broadband Resource Rail to look for funding opportunities?
So I'm going to go to Tony Lapino. Tony, if you could identify a couple of steps to get started, and then we'll see about a comment from the Resource Rail folks.
Sure. I mean, I think there are a lot of portals into the university, but I think I'd start here with our Phase 2 team leader, Sam Tennant, who's on here. And I think, we have a steering committee that several of us will be serving on to try to take in these kinds of proposals and then reach out to the communities through extension. But I think Sam would be the good portal for that initial starting point. And then I think our Resource Rail group here will tell you that we consciously have built into it opportunities to load in sources of funding, and there's a growing number of sources of funding. So we'll let maybe Rob address that.
Sure. On the Missouri Broadband Resource Rail side, there are categories for funding. Inside of the Navigator, there's information about that. Certainly, I know, Sam, we co-loaded a whole lot on different funding topics, and Mark gave us some really good research and best practices on how to go about that particular part of the process. So they're all there in the library. And then, as Sam pointed out, and I think this is really critical, there are different funding opportunities available depending upon your specific geographic location, and that's really where a lot of the data layer there can be leveraged to help inform that. And Mark, am I missing anything? I think those are good places to start.
Great.
There was a question, as Tony, again, I see a question here, Megan pointed out. We are in contact with MoreNet to get a profile into the Resource Rail and to get them involved as well. So.
Great, thank you. Thank you all. And Megan, thank you for being our question wrangler. Appreciate that. We are coming to the conclusion, and before we do that, I'm going to turn it over to Sam Tennant in a moment for next steps, call to action, closing. I want to say thank you again to all of you on the panel as presenters as well. Excellent job. Thank you again to Bollinger County and working with us and sharing your story and being a partner in this work and being a trailblazer as it relates to this partnership. So thank you for that. I'm going to turn it over to Sam. Sam Tennant and the University of Missouri Cares is taking on a leadership role as we move forward with the broadband initiative on behalf of the University of Missouri system. So Sam, you will close us out. Thank you.
Yeah, before closing, I just wanted to discuss a little about what's next for the initiative. The brief discussion you heard covered a few of the findings and recommendations made by the facilitators in their written report that were applicable to Bollinger County and to a state as a whole. The workshop report, all 107 pages, is available on the Resource Rail, but it does include an executive summary that is a little shorter. More importantly, as Alison and others have just mentioned, this starts a new chapter in the broadband initiative. So a new broadband steering committee has been formed. It is composed of representatives from CARES, SourceLink, our system-wide faculty broadband committee, the system, the Entrepreneurial Educator Network, system advancement, and MU extension. We'll be meeting in the coming weeks, like Tony just said, to map out the process for implementing the recommendations contained in the report in Bollinger County and throughout the state. So as I just said, a number of those folks that are on the steering committee, it is a group effort. The work that has been accomplished so far cannot be attributed to just one person, a group, or organization. The ball continues to move as we have conversations and begin collaborating across sectors and communities. So adding your broadband assets to the resource navigator is one step to let others know how to engage with you and how you can engage with others. So I encourage each of you who are working in this space to create a profile and start identifying the areas of assistance even yourself might need. Also, please go to the site and view the full workshop report. If during this webinar you've been thinking about if you wanted to do something similar to Bollinger County, the report is meant to be used as a template for other communities. If you want to start from scratch, consider the Building Local Prosperity Initiatives, which involves getting the right people in the room, or you can reach out to anyone on this call today and we'll point you in the right direction. We can help facilitate the community coming together, but communities need to convene and help lead the effort. Hopefully these tools can ease the process. So please use the Missouri Broadband Resource Rail, give us feedback, and reach out if you have any thoughts or questions. As Rob mentioned before, the site will evolve as the project continues. So if new needs arise that the resource rail should adapt to, contact us with suggestions. Once again, thank you all for taking the time and joining today. Thanks.